Now, this wasn't on my bingo card for 2024, but here we are. It's time to say goodbye to this news theme. And hello to an old friend. Last time I did a video on news themes, I called upon the legendary British composer Thomas Field for his opinions and insights into what goes on under the hood of a news theme.
Found this, mate.
Oh, thanks. So it only felt right to ask him again for his opinions and insights.
Small job down here.
I think it's got one of the hallmarks of lots of the classic news themes, which is like a big brassy part. I think it's a trumpet playing the melody line. It's also got some funky percussion stuff as well, which is not something I would necessarily think to put in a news theme if I was writing it. I think it does a pretty good job of staying neutral, but also I think it kind of cleverly both stays neutral but seems quite hopeful at the same time. And I think it's doing that by being in a minor key but focusing on the major chords of that key. So the tonal center is minor, so sad, in kind of basic, minor is sad, major is happy terms. But the chords that are used are mostly major. I think that's the case anyway.
Can you just tell that by listening to it, or did you do a bit of research?
I was, just before we got on, I was trying to work out what the chords were on my guitar. It's sort of in D minor, because that's where it's going towards. Or it's in a D unclassified D tonal center, so it's not necessarily major or minor,
right?
But the other chords that are used make more sense for it to be D minor, but then when it reaches the D chord it's kind of ambiguous, I think, or it's very quietly major or minor, but I can't quite tell.
My friend Josh has relative pitch, and I reckon if I got him to just listen to the theme, he could probably tell me whether or not it's a D or D minor.
No, I don't think it's a minor. I don't think it's a minor. I think it would have been, it would have either been a fifth or just an octave chord, or not chord, octave note. I think makes a lot of sense for how they would have gone about composing that, because like I said, you're trying to, it's meant to sound like it works for anything. So it makes sense to have a bit of a balance between both minor and major and just neutral sounding stuff.
So this news theme, funnily enough, is actually a redo of an old ABC news theme. Mm-hmm. I'll send you a link to watch what it used to sound like.
Okay, let's have a listen. That had some funky sounding synths or guitars or something in there as well, doing a little counterpart.
Oh, and I love those. I love the little yeah. There it is.
The things that age it, and I'm not saying the older version is bad in any way, but just you can tell it's from a slightly older time, but the things that point to that, they've definitely changed up, and I think the new one could have been written yesterday.
Now, there are lots of cool things about this redo, and one of them is the way they went about remastering the original tapes.
I came across some technical processes that I'd never heard of before, and I just wanted to throw them out there to see if you've heard of them before.
If I haven't cut it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Got to maintain my rep.
I'm only going to splice together the bits you don't know and stitch them all together. They had one copy of the master tapes from the original 1985 recording of the theme, and before putting them through the tape machine to digitize them, they had to put them in an oven for 4 hours. Is that sounds like something that ChatGPT would tell you to do, and you've accidentally melted your tapes. But are you familiar with this concept?
So I've never put tapes in the oven. When I make bread, that normally goes in for about 20 minutes. That's the closest I can offer on that point.
Because the tapes were so old, we had to bake them in an oven for 4 hours to make sure the oxide on the tape wouldn't come off when we put them on the machine to play it.
So I looked into this, and it turns out it's a pretty common process with tapes produced after the mid-1970s. Before then, they were just made better. Basically, there are three main components that go into making magnetic tape. There's the plastic film base, the magnetic bits that hold all the information, and the adhesive that sticks it all together. And in the 1970s, all the tape manufacturers decided to change their recipe for making tapes, and the adhesive in particular, which just made everything worse. Obviously, that wasn't their intention. We only found that out years later, but alas, that is what happened. Anyway, back to baking tapes. It's a low temperature bake, sort of around the 55-degree mark, and it's to dry out the tape, because over time it can actually absorb moisture, and that makes the tape sticky and gunky, a condition known as the sticky shed syndrome. And if you want to know what playing a sticky tape sounds like,
it's not the sort of sound you want to hear from your precious recordings.
yeah. But of course, this method comes with its limitations. You can't expect to bake a tape and not break a few eggs, except in this case the eggs are perhaps the polymer plastic backing, which can get brittle and even shrink as a result. But if done properly, this is a legitimate and common way to prepare a tape for transfer.
Now, this may seem a little crude, but there's very little alternative.
Just two quick notable mentions when it comes to cool things about this new/old theme. The new one has a subliminal message in Morse code.
The beep 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 is a Morse code for ABC.
And of course, the Pendulum remix. If you are not aware already, Pendulum are a Perth-based rock band who famously did a remix of this news theme maybe a decade ago. And everywhere that I've seen the new theme posted online, there have been a lot of people calling for the Pendulum remix to be adopted as the new official theme, which is a cute idea, but perhaps wouldn't go down exceptionally well on certain news days. But it is also a sad farewell for me. The theme it's replacing is this one from 2005. The man who composed this theme, Martin Armiger, was actually one of my lecturers at uni, but he's probably better known as being one of the members of the 1970s rock band The Sports. Even when the ABC News theme got a redo in the early 2010s and then again in 2017, it was still the same melody as the one that Martin Armiger concocted back in 2005. So for me, at least, and maybe for some of you out there who grew up with this theme, it is a bittersweet farewell. But hey, who's to say that if they're resurrecting the 1980s news theme today, they won't resurrect the 2005 theme at some point in the future. Anyway, that's the video. Hope you enjoyed. A big thank you again to Thomas Field for sharing his insights. It's always interesting to know what someone who didn't grow up in Australia thinks of our news themes. And also, a thank you to Josh Langman for allowing me to exploit his magical powers on the keys. Speaking of, can't hurt to play a little bit more of that.
Yeah, what is it? So it's...
There is no need for you to be that talented. That is amazing.
Oh, God.
Have you ever played that before?
No. This was just me just thinking about what some of the notes were while I was walking around.